Hello and welcome to Speaking Of, a podcast brought to you by Axios International. I'm your host, Asma Ali Zain, and in this podcast, we give voice to those whose stories often go unheard. We provide a platform for patients to share their insights, perspectives, and journeys with others facing similar struggles. These are stories of hope, stories of support, and stories of healing. These are your stories. Just 6 months ago, our guest, Alan, received the news that would shake anyone to their core. He was diagnosed with multiple myeloma, in other words, a cancer that can happen anywhere in the body. But instead of succumbing to despair, Alan was determined to beat the odds. Today, we sit down with Alan to talk about his experience. From the initial shock of diagnosis to the grueling yet life-saving treatments that led to the incredible news. He is now cancer-free. In an interesting and life-saving twist, Alan has chosen to store his own stem cells, a decision that opens a new chapter in his life and promises a future free from the shadows of cancer. So, Alan, can you just take us back to the moment you received the diagnosis of multiple myeloma? How did you initially process that news?
Well, it was difficult. It was shocking. And obviously, it was, as you call it, a wake-up call, as you would call it, because otherwise one is leading a very healthy lifestyle, and the news was a shocker, which you can imagine. But again, took it pretty well in terms of addressing the issue more than getting depressed. I know people who take it very negatively and go into a bit of a depression kind of mode. But I took it more as a challenge, and therefore that helps.
So what happened? Where were you exactly when before you actually found out, that you had?
No, it was, in my case, it was different. My case was a routine surgery, which kind of, nothing to do with this, which kind of detected this diagnosis, this disease. So it came out of another procedure rather than any direct symptoms.
So you mentioned you were in a hospital, and then what happened?
Yeah, it was
there?
a nasal operation.
All right.
Which post that we found out that this has happened, and then obviously needed to be addressed, and the whole treatment cycle and the whole medical process changed. So
you had mentioned that you actually found out when the bone fractured that you had.
No, that was the second stage.
That is the second stage.
First stage was a nasal, routine nasal operation.
After that operation, was it clear? What did the doctor give you?
It was absolutely clear, cleared everything, passed all the tests,
Mm-hmm.
and then subsequently it reoccurred, and that really caused the doctors to diagnose the disease as multiple myeloma.
So when it reoccurred, where were you? What happened? How did you find out?
Well, it was again a routine checkup,
Mm-hmm.
and in the hospital, and as a part of the routine checkup and further tests, it happened. It kind of got diagnosed. But while it was being diagnosed, it caused a multiple fracture as well. So it was a combination of normal testing, but while normal testing was going on, it caused a fracture in between.
So by coincidence, you can say that
it's coincidence, and I think I was lucky.
You were lucky, and you were in hospital at that day
That's
also
right.
when it happened. All right. So, what were your immediate kind of thoughts and emotions when you learned about the nature of your illness? Many people, cancer is a very big word, and many people get bogged down, and there's so many thoughts going on in their mind. What was happening with you?
Different people will react differently to it. I did not react negatively at all, and my feelings were more towards let's address it. The good thing is that one has led a very good life, and globally, lived in various geographies, and therefore it didn't really mentally hit me badly. Obviously, it's a shocker, and you've got to address it, and you've got to treat yourself. And the good news is that it was detected very, very early, and therefore could be addressed very quickly as well. But obviously, at the time when you hear the news, you got to process it in your mind, and more importantly, I think it's the people around you.
Yeah.
Family, friends, colleagues. You've got to process it from their perspective, not only from your own perspective, because you've got to address all that. I think that's the more difficult one than addressing it yourself on a one-to-one basis.
So genuinely, I'm like very sure your family was very concerned.
Absolutely.
Your friends, they were there to support you.
Absolutely. Great support system.
So does everyone in your family know? I've spoken to people who have actually even hidden it from their families,
No, we don't hide it from the families, but yes, we don't want to go and publicize it to the social world. So very selective people know, but family, of course. I honestly feel people should be transparent about it, at least to family.
No, like you said, there's so many emotions and so many reactions. People react in different ways. So many did react in this way. People previously I have spoken to, they didn't want to pass on the pain or the worry, and so they kind of kept it to themselves until the disease progressed, and it naturally became to a point where they had to tell. But aside from that, you have been positive. You have taken this like head on and all that. So what was the next step? What happened once you were diagnosed for the second time with myeloma? What did the doctors recommend? Was there radiation, chemotherapy sessions?
Yeah. The normal standard treatments.
How many cycles did you go through?
Well, depends, about 3 cycles, and because it was early stage, it was addressed very early in the process. So a few cycles, 3 cycles of chemo did it.
How did you manage it? It's very hard to...
Not really. I think it's just the first 1 or 2 sessions where you kind of... And then it becomes a routine. Again, the issue really I've seen and I've seen a lot of patients around now, is it's how you take it mentally. More than emotionally, I think it's mental.
Right.
So, because the emotions come out of how your mind is operating.
True.
And I think after going through a first few sessions, it actually becomes a routine. And if you can keep your mind positive, it's like taking a shower. I mean, literally. Yeah. Because first few sessions, obviously there's anxiety, there's concern, but once you go through it, you feel it's...
But some people have physical reactions, severe kind of physical reaction as well. So you were good in that, is it?
Very fortunate.
Okay. All right. So you said how many 3 cycles you underwent? What happened after that?
Nothing. And then the results came clear, the scans came clear. Amazing. And went through now just normal maintenance medicine.
So you are now cancer-free.
Absolutely.
That is absolutely good news, and congrats for that.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So when you got that news, again, how did you process it? Cancer-free. I mean, this happened within a span of 6 months, you're saying.
Yes.
The previous 6 months. That's a very short time, to process so much.
But you have to be, once you go through this, I'm sure every patient who goes through this process does a lot of research and does a lot of introspection and does a lot of consultations with multiple doctors and specialists. It's a disease which can come back. And the doctors will tell you, the medical science will tell you. So when you say it's cancer-free, it's great news. But you have to take precaution. And every year you have to go through testing to make sure that it doesn't come back. It's not something that you can just discard it from your mind. You have to be conscious of the fact that at least for a period of 5 years, you've got to monitor that the disease does not come back. And if it does come back, how do you treat it at that time? You have to prepare for it.
But you went 2 steps ahead. You stored your stem cells.
Yeah.
Tell me how that thought came about.
Again, the doctors in America mostly and other places recommended that. And because the research in cancer emanates from the US.
Okay.
So if a patient is anywhere in the world, they'll go back and consult the major institutions in the United States. And obviously, they recommended that.
So it means like right now when you're cancer free, you have healthy stem cells, which you have kept, I mean, God forbid if it happens, refills and all for future. Was that a very tough procedure? How did it work out?
No. It's obviously a procedure. It's a proper procedure, but it's not that tough.
That's an option because, why we want to discuss it in detail is people who are listening, they might also get the idea, I know doctors recommend it at all, but once a patient who has undergone it and explains the process of how they went through it, it might give them a kind of, idea of this is what they can also kind of look for. So how long are your stem cells, the healthy ones that you have stored now, viable for?
Practically, let's talk practical. Let's not talk theoretical stuff. Practically 5 to 10 years.
Okay.
Practically. I mean, you can theoretically say you can store it for 10 plus, 15 plus, 20 plus. But practically, it's 5 to 10 years.
Okay. So what happens? It's just like bone marrow, they'll just remove a
See, it also depends on the patients. See, what happens with patients is that your stem cells do not apply to every type of cancer in the body. It also depends on the level of recurrence and what intensity of recurrence and where does it recur. So it's not one solution can fix it all. But it's one step. It's a very major precautionary step. Again, patients need to consult their doctors, whether it's relevant to them. Patients need to consult, do some research on this, and also make sure that at the time when you do it, they should be clear on in what circumstances can they be used.
Okay.
A lot of people would just do it blindly and think that now it can be used for everything. That's not true. So you have to do your own research. And again, this is a highly specialized medical field.
Right.
You have to consult your specialist. And what I've seen in most patients and friends and where this has happened to people consult too many people.
True.
Doctors and physicians and specialists, and they confuse the hell of themselves.
We have Google too now because, it's on hand. People go and research.
That's right, but it's wrong because you have to eventually select one specialist who you have to completely rely on. Irrespective where the specialist is based in the world. I have seen people making major mistakes by going for multiple advisors and then following those multiple advisors which are conflicting. And that's a mistake you cannot make. You have to have the leap of faith on your primary doctor.
So were you lucky enough to find one specialist?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And that is the only person that you are...
Well, like everybody else, when you get this shocking news, you consult multiple sources. But eventually, you have to zero down on one doctor you're going to rely on at the end.
Right. So, can you tell me how you heard about Axios International and you have enrolled in a program? How is that helping you? Are you getting enough support?
Yes, the doctor who recommended it because they were enrolled me in the program and they've been great. Very supportive. I was pleasantly surprised that they were so responsive. Obviously, there was a process of going through the eligibility criteria and filling up forms, interviewing data, providing whatever data is required. But I was actually, my expectations were very low, but their response actually was so good that within 4 to 6 weeks, the program was operational.
Right. Yeah, I'm really happy to hear that you're getting the right kind of support and you are satisfied with that, because that is what Axios is all about. It's all about helping patients. That's what we do. So I know it's a very short conversation, but I think it's full of information and it's very enriching. I'm very sure it's going to guide people who are listening. So lastly, what kind of advice are you going to give to people who are undergoing the same kind of condition?
as I said before in the podcast, in the conversation, that you can do your research, don't depend too much on Google, and because this is a super specialty,
Right.
and it's every patient is different. Every case is different. So you find yourself a very good doctor. You can consult 10 doctors around the world, but come down to one specialist once you have him or her. Please follow their advice to the T. Because if you deviate during the treatment, it can have far-reaching implications. And I've seen that happen.
Right.
People just get up and go to a different jurisdiction, a different geography, a different doctor, and they change the treatment, and we've seen very bad effects happening. Stick to one. And today the science has progressed to the level, thanks to all the social media and everything, that the research and the latest developments which happen, mainly in the US, are trickled down to the rest of the world in a matter of days, not in a matter of months.
Right. Healthcare is
So the research materials, the clinical trials, the results of all these. So please do rely on your physician as long as you get comfortable that your doctor is up to date,
Right.
irrespective where you're based in the world.
Right. You also mentioned about the mindset.
Very, very important. I think 80% of your cure comes from your mind and 20% comes from medical science.
Absolutely. I totally believe in that. It's how you manifest, probably. I would put it as that. Thank you so much, Alan, for being with us today and kind of guiding patients. And we really appreciate that you took out the time and you came to us and gave us this great advice. We wish you all the best in future. Thanks again. And that concludes another episode of Speaking of Hope.Support.Heal. We extend our heartfelt gratitude to Alan for sharing his extraordinary story and his resilience in a beacon of hope for all those navigating challenging paths. If you or someone you know is navigating their journey through adversity, remember you're not alone. There is strength in sharing our stories and finding common threads that connect us all. Battling cancer is challenging. It can impact patients' psychological health, and the cost of treatment may lead to severe financial difficulties. But access to innovative treatment shouldn't be one of them. As an access to healthcare company, Axios International provides complete support that a patient would need at any point in their journey. If you found inspiration in today's episode, please consider sharing it with someone who might need a boost or a reminder that they are not alone. Together, we can spread hope and encouragement. Thank you for joining us here today. Until next time, take care, stay resilient, and cherish the moments that make life truly precious.
Axios, transforming access to healthcare.